Well, first of all, I grew up in a musical family. My father and mother were musicians. Father was a very famous violin player in Armenia, Vahagn Hayrapetyan, and mother was a violin player as well, so I grew up in the musical family. That makes me love music, respect musicians, and be in the circle of music all the time.
What got you interested in picking up jazz vocal?
Well, first of all, before I started playing, I was already singing. Like everybody else, every musician, before they start to play any instrument, the most natural musical instrument is your voice, because it's your voice, and you make different. Well, your first musician's first musical instrument is his voice. So I start singing. I start composing songs, not in a jazz, not in the jazz style, let's say. Just singing like a kid. I started when I was 2-3 years old. So singing in the kindergarten, and then I went to music school. Then I graduated the Tchaikovsky Special Music School in Armenia as a piano player and a composer. But when I was 6, maybe 5 or 6, my mother introduced me to jazz music because my mother was a big jazz fan from the 60s, 50s, real jazz music. You know? So first I heard Count Basie and Duke Ellington Orchestra, Oscar Peterson, and all the other great jazz, Louis Armstrong. You know, and I fall in love with jazz music. And I before even started playing piano professionally, I was already playing some jazz chords, some jazz melodies, without even knowing, you know, just picking up from the record, or hearing them from the record. And those records I was listening when I was a kid, I'm still listening to those records because they were great records. And all the time, it's like no time limit for that kind of music.
What teachers help you progress the level of playing today that made you choose jazz vocal?
Well, I don't know why you concentrate on jazz vocal, but well, listening to that music. First of all, like jazz music, it's a listener's music. You know, you have to really listen to that music all the time. Maybe you have to transcribe some of the great musicians. Maybe you have to copy some of the great musicians to have your own thoughts. You know, you have big library of music that you listen to all the time, and some of them you like. You start like I was listening to Oscar Peterson records. I was playing off the records. Solos, I was transcribing Charlie Parker solos, Lester Young solos. Charlie Parker transcribed Lester Young solos all his life. You know, if they did that, then we should do that. Well, and then after all, I think I was 9 years old. Yeah, I was 9 years old. We went to Poland. Me and my mother went to Poland as a tourist. And we found a jazz club in Krakow. Mm-hmm. And we went to that jazz club, and first time in my life I was hearing a live jazz band in a real jazz club. So I was 8 years old, I guess, yeah. And I already knew how to play blues, and I already knew how to take the A train. And after the musicians finished their program, the guy who invites us to Poland, he asked the jazz musicians, he said, can this young man play one song before you close the club? And they said, okay, let him play. So I played Take the A Train. And there was a legendary saxophone player, Janusz Muniak, in Poland, in Krakow. He was in that band. So he picked up his saxophone from the case that he already packed. You know, he pulled it off the saxophone. He came stand next, right. No, he came to this side. He came to my right side, and he starts playing with me. And we end up playing blues and all the songs I know, you know, blues and Take the A Train. I think we play something else too, but we play 2 or 3 songs. But then one thing he told me, he said, man, young man, he said, when you will be a real jazz musician, I will already be a very old man. So that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of hope that I see myself in that music. You know, when I came back, there was a great jazz piano teacher, Armen Dertaterosyan, in Armenia. Nobody heard about him because he was back then he was a great teacher, and he was a friend of Chico, our drummer, legendary guy. So Chico introduced me to Armen. I started going to his house for private lessons. So I had my lessons with him about a year or 2, twice a week, I guess. And he was giving me some exercises, some chord lessons, you know, how to start. So then I started playing. And there was one day that in Composers Union in Armenia, we had a jam session. And I came out and I played a jam session with Armenian old guys, you know, Stepan Shakaryan. It was the same Armen Tatarosyan. There was a lot of good players, you know, back then. David Azarian, you know. And I was a little kid. I was like 10 years old. That was my first jazz experience in Armenia. Then after that, I formed my own trio. We started playing. I was writing my original songs, having my own trio, forming different bands, playing different jazz festivals already in ex-Soviet Union territory. I think I had one tour around the United States back then already. But after all, well, it's a long story, man. I'm gonna tell you all my. But mainly, like last, let's say, 20, 30 years, right? 1996, I went to record in New Orleans record company. I recorded 2 albums there, and then I went to New York. And I stayed in New York a very long time. And I had a fortune to study with my hero, Barry Harris. Barry Harris taught me all the great things that I am carrying right now and passing to my students right now. You know, because Barry was the only, right now, he's the only living legend. He's the best teacher. He was the best teacher for all the time. He was the guideline in Detroit jazz scene, in New York jazz scene. He taught a lot of big guys, legends, you know. He was a teacher of Paul Chambers. He was a teacher of, what do you call this guy? What's his name, man? A lot of guys, man, a lot of guys. I don't remember even the names right now. Yusuf Latif, I don't know. James Jamison, man, the bass guitar player, James Jamison, very famous. Like he played in Motown Records. He was teaching James Jamison. That's why he was great. So I had the fortune to meet Barry Harris, and until today, I can call him and ask questions, and he would answer. We played through the phone. If I have a chance, I go to Europe to have more lessons with him. If I don't have a chance, I go to New York. Don't lose a chance with Barry Harris. You know, you will learn a lot of stuff. Next.
How did your sound evolve over time? What did you do to find develop your sound?
Well, you know, your sound comes from your blood, I guess. From your, because jazz is one of the forms in art that eventually brings your own sound. Anyway, you gotta have your own. Because when I was, first of all, let me tell you, that was the highest compliment I get in New York from the great big old jazz musicians. They say, man, you play Armenian jazz, you know? Because I know I sound different. Even though my favorite jazz musicians are Bud Powell, Thelonious Monk, Barry Harris, Art Tatum, there's a lot of them. But I know even I like them and I learn from them. I learn from everybody a little bit. You listen to everybody. And even I learn from them a lot, but eventually because jazz music is who you are, you know? What is inside of you, what is your character, what is your nature is coming out, you know? And then you bring some of your national elements to that. That's where your identity comes out, you know? When you bring your Armenian roots, it's a different story. And then all of a sudden, you use your knowledge of jazz music in Armenian folk music. That's what I'm doing right now. You know, I play jazz standards, I play bebop, and I play all that. But now, I said, okay, now let me use all my knowledge in my folk music. To change, not to change the folk music. I'm not going to change the folk, but I wanna have the folk music today, because those old guys, the folk musicians, they wrote all this music for us to continue, not to repeat them, but to continue. Because we can play Sayat Nova's songs all the time, but what Sayat Nova wants to have your own sound. You don't have to be a copy of somebody. The meaning of the essence of music is to bring it forward. You know, to say something, not to say something new, just to be something original. To be original, it's one thing, but to be creative, it's another thing. You know? To create, for example, right now with my orchestra, I write new songs, I do new arrangements, and then there's a string section, big band, and a folk section, right? And you write new songs, you know, for the next generation, to listen to your music and to continue from there. Otherwise, we stay in the Leyaman, you know. And we say the Leyaman all the time, you know, and we cry. We don't have to cry anymore, finish. No more crying, we have to go forward, you know? Because life is going, and jazz is part of the life. Just like computers, like airplanes, like telephones, it's part of the life. You cannot deny that, right? It depends, the important thing, how you use it. How you use it and why you use it. That's very important. Because if you use just to use and to say, oh, this guy is doing something new. No. You know, to make yourself popular. To make myself popular, I can run completely naked right down the street. Next tomorrow, I will be the most popular guy. But that doesn't mean nothing. Popularity is one thing, creativity is different.
What is this? What practice, routine, or exercise have you developed to maintain and improve your current musical abilities, especially?
Okay. rhythm is very, why it's good, this question. Why I like all your questions? Because they're all reasonable questions, not only asking question. But sometimes in these questions, sometimes I learn something about me. Because I never ask this question to me. And all of a sudden here you are asking me the question, I have to find an answer. Which is I have to look inside of it to find an answer. That's good. It's you giving me a chance to look inside. Some people, they only look out. But the most, you have to look in to be able to maintain the outside. So, practice. Okay. To be honest, I'm not one of the guys that practices 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. I'm not that kind of person. But I practice. But I know the important thing is not how much you practice, what you practice. That's important. If you know what to practice, you can practice in 20 minutes, in 1 hour, half an hour, but every day. There are guys practicing 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, but just practicing, And then when they go on stage, they still practice. When you go on stage, you have to play. No practice and finish. You practice at home and you play on the bandstand. Otherwise, you will practice all your life. I know this kind of people a lot. They practice one thing, they play different thing. So for me, practicing is all the time. I sit down at the piano maybe half an hour, I know what to do. But usually every day I practice, maybe all day. Because I walk down the street, in my mind, I make up something that I have to practice. I listen to music, I listen to something, I concentrate on that. Next day I practice that. For half an hour, 20 minutes, but every day. Or I have a new song in my mind. This is a process that you live all day. Sometimes my wife is talking to me, I'm somewhere else. What did I was like, wait, 5 minutes. And rhythmically, music first of all is melody, harmony, and rhythm. For me, that's music. When three components are together, you have to have melody, harmony, and rhythm. Just like in life, you have to have melody. In life, melody is your way of living, your life, your root. Harmony, hopefully everybody have inside of them the harmony, not to fight every day with yourself. And the rhythm is the rhythm you live. We speak rhythm, we talk rhythm, we sing rhythm, we live rhythm. It's all rhythm. When we talk, it's rhythm. Da 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 da. When you talk, it's rhythm because it's rhythmic. Da 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 da. So you can make a song out of it. The rhythm is very important for jazz, especially because it's a rhythmic music. So it's a very hard decision which is important in jazz, melody, harmony, or rhythm. To me, I think rhythm comes first. I think you can play the wrongest notes with a very good rhythm. It will sound much better than you play the right notes with the wrong rhythm.
Which harmonies and harmonic partners do you prefer now? Okay.
Well, harmony, that's coming back to Barry Harris. He taught me a lot of harmony. Because music is endless, like mathematics. It's no ending for mathematics, no ending for music. There's so much, when they say, you play old music, everything is already played, for me that's nothing. Because in music, what is the best jazz piece? Can you tell me? Nobody can. The best jazz music is not written yet, and never will be written, because it's endless. It's not. This is Porgy and Bess is the best jazz. No, of course not, because there's many other things. It's endless, especially jazz music. As long as you live, if the music is with you, when you go, you pass the tradition to somebody else. And he continues, then somebody else is. There's so much to play for everybody. So much to play.
Okay, that's which are the best jazz albums for you? 17.
There's so many jazz albums out there, man. So many. Well, I don't know for about 2017, but about the new albums, my favorite, one of my favorite albums, I don't know if it's recorded 17 or no, but it's a band that not too many people knows. It's across 7th Street Septet or Octet with Chris Byers and Ari Roland. It's called Life in New York. It's all my friends, but it's great music. I like that album. I listen to that album almost every day. I listen to Sasha Perry Trio almost every day. Frank Hewitt. Nobody knows these guys. They're not famous, but they're best. They are better than some famous people to me. Nobody knows Frank Hewitt. I studied with Frank Hewitt also. Just by watching him, asking him questions, listening to him, playing with him. It's one of the biggest legends, but he's underground. He's not like Herbie Hancock, he's not like Oscar Peterson, but to me, he's much deeper. And because he doesn't want to be a famous jazz musician. Those great some great jazz musicians, they don't follow their career. They're not good at making a career. They just want to sit down and play. They don't want to be big stars. They don't want to be millionaires. They want to play. That's all. That's all they want to do. So that's why nobody knows that. But some people, they are behind the career. They want to do big career, do big TV shows, interviews, big Las Vegas shows, lots of CDs. But listen to Frank Hewitt. He's a very strange piano player. Not too many people. Nobody plays like him. Very strange guy. And I live with him in the same apartment. He wakes up every day, we practice, I live the life with him for about 6 months in the same apartment, every night. That's a big lesson, you grow up, you live life with the legend. Every day, not as a tourist, but as a friend. And he, by the way, he came to Armenia. For about 3 months he worked here in Buffalo. Nobody knows. Yeah. It's not the famous that makes you good. For example, I'm sorry, but Coca-Cola is the most famous drink, but it's the most dangerous drink also. Right? Yeah. There you go. But nobody knows about the apricot juice in Armenia. But apricot juice is much more healthy, more delicious, and more fresh, and looks good, tastes great. Coca-Cola is just a big name. It pays money for people to die.
Same thing. Okay. What's the balance in music between intellect and soul?
Well, good question. Very hard question. But it should be in balance, of course. Because you have to have intellect enabled to produce something decent, something that brings people. Because it's not only jazz. Is not for only. I don't believe that they say jazz. It's an intellectual music for them. No, jazz is for here. Jazz was a dance music. Don't forget about that. The real jazz or swing music was for dancers. People used to dance to that music. After it went to the big concert halls and people start listening seriously, and they're like, they don't even understand what they're listening, because jazz music changed. You know, it became from soul to more intellectual. Now they listen to jazz music. I'm sure 80% of the audience doesn't understand what they're listening to. Doesn't even know what they're listening to. Because today, jazz musicians, they write for themselves, not for the people. Music is for people. For all the people. You have to make people feel good, you know? It's not necessarily you have to be a clown, you know, but by music just to feel good. Because they are the ones paying you. People are paying you, right? They come to your concert, they buy ticket, they sit down and they say they don't understand nothing. Why? But you can play something, they move, you know, they move, they dance, they, you know, like something happened, you know. Who doesn't like Louis Armstrong? Everybody likes Louis. There's not one person don't like Louis Armstrong. Because he makes people think, he makes people cry, he makes people laugh, he makes people smile, he makes people dance. He stopped the war. Louis Armstrong was the first jazz musician to stop the war in Vietnam. He stand up in the border and they start playing and the war stopped. They don't shoot each other. It's a peace music.
Okay, let's go. Complete jams, automatic,
Okay, just shut down. I'm gonna have one water and we go.
Okay.